we wanted broad discussion, and we invited lots of different parties and organisations to contribute. So both RS21 and Socialist Resistance were clear that we wanted, and we invited speakers from the Socialist Worker Party, from the Socialist Party, from the Green Party, from the Parti de Gauche, and so on. So one of the things that we can do in forums like this is we can discuss together. But I'd just make the point that in Denmark, just at the end of last year, in Copenhagen in particular, a left-wing party, the Red Green Alliance, Enhedslisten as it's called in Danish, became the second biggest party on the Copenhagen City Council and won the environmental portfolio. And the capitalist voices went absolutely berserk because they said this party will try and prevent more roads being built, which was their main platform, through the centre of Copenhagen, which means less people buying cars, and this will affect the economy in a massive way. And that electing a left-wing, radical left-wing, anti-austerity and pro-ecology party into a position of power in the city council would be the end of the world. Now, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world, but the fact is there was only one party standing in the elections. The Red Green Alliance brought together all the left-wing forces and was able to start doing that. Finally, a couple of mentions have been made of Podemos, the new force. And just to let you know that there's also happening today is a Left Unity National Council. Unfortunately, it was called after we called the date for this meeting, so we couldn't avoid clashing with it. My Left Unity branch has put a resolution to that meeting that we organise a speaking tour in Britain of the Podemos organisation from Spain, and that adopting their practices, we don't organise big rallies in city centre halls, but we try and organise for Podemos meetings to take place in local town halls, smaller areas, people coming together and try and see what we can learn from their experience. That's just a couple of factual but polemical points as well. Can I see who else wishes to speak?
Small announcement.
Sorry?
Can I make a small announcement just as relevant?
Yeah, sure, at this point in time.
It's where the Podemos, because they organise in these circles, they actually have a circle in London as well.
Oh,
so one of the things that's happening today, I think it's the Royal Festival Hall, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's one of our journalists is the London Podemos Circle is meeting today at 4 o'clock. So from the sound of it, it's been a huge meeting for the national leaders to come over. And I think one of the things they've been discussing is as Podemos getting some of their people out to speak. Obviously, there's so many people from Portugal, what they call the Portuguese in exile, people being forced out by austerity to live in
Pigs group from Spain. There was a pigs group. It was very noticeable, though. But it is an interesting point that it was, and we're talking about flashpoints here. There is a huge community, particularly in London, of the people from those countries that have both been most been affected by austerity. And it was an interesting fact that the People's Assembly protest last year that probably a third of the audience were exiles from Portugal, Spain, Greece and so on who were in the forefront. And certainly in London it's a very big community. Sylvain is part of it from France as well, of the European Union.
NHS
so on. Yes, fascinating. Okay, can I see who else would like to speak? We've got about 10 to 15 minutes left, probably about 12 minutes. We can take about 3 or 4 people. So those people haven't spoken. I've got 2 over here, 1 over here. And was that an indication or not? Okay, can I just take those 3 people then, and we'll give some time for Sylvain and Nancy to come back. So I'll start on my right. Person there, then Alan, and then...
Yeah, I was just a bit worried. A couple of the people at the front made what I thought were quite depressing comments. I don't want to throw that on you, but you know that actually things are going really badly and it's not a good, easy time. And certainly it isn't. But what is it that makes people forced to fight? Because we can talk here about the disunity amongst the left in Britain and everywhere in France and everything else, and look at negative things. But just a recent experience I had was, I think it's quite interesting. I just want to share is that I work in the London Borough, Hammersmith and Fulham, which up until a couple of weeks ago was David Cameron's favourite council. And working for Hammersmith and Fulham, you realise what utter bastards the Tories can be. I work in a school, I work in welfare. Poor families in Hammersmith and Fulham, housing is used as a weapon to basically get rid of them. There is social cleansing taking place on quite a high scale. Housing, everything. They're sold off public buildings, Yeah, and they were doing it hand over fist because they were worried they were going to lose the election. And I've never been so excited about a council election in my life. I woke up on the morning after the elections, got straight on the website, and yes, Labour have won. I've never been so pleased about a Labour Party victory. And there was a letter came round from the chief executive of the council within a week, which said that the local school that was going to be closed because they needed the site for a free school, yeah, they're looking at trying to reverse that, and they expect the school rolls in Hammersmith Fulham to increase. So they're not going to close schools, they're not looking to carry on the academies and everything else, because they're not planning to move people out of the area. They expect the number of places needed for primary school children to increase, which is great news for every school in the borough, including mine. Our school roll was dropping. But what is it that led people to do that? You know, it wasn't the organisation of the revolutionary left. You know, I went along to some campaign meeting and everyone cheered and everything else, but actually we lost the campaign, or we had lost it until now. And whether Labour actually deliver or not still remains to be seen. I can't be sure of that. But actually, what was it that pushed people to fight? A bit like, you know, ecological disaster is around the corner almost, isn't it? What are we going to do? But actually, there are things that happen outside of what we do, as much as we need to be organised in campaigning, that actually pushes larger numbers of people into fight. And what the Tories did in Hammersmith Fulham is they just went too far. They you know, every other Conservative you could think of, if your local hospitals were being threatened, every Conservative council, every Conservative MP would say, not in my backyard, wouldn't they? They'd say, well, you know, it needs to be cut and everything else, but not this one, this is in my area, I'm going to stand up and defend it. In Hammersmith and Fulham, they didn't defend their local hospitals, and so people wanted to get rid of them. That was so bloody clear. Sullivan School is another example. They're not going to defend our local schools, successful local schools, not even ones that Ofsted can come along and say, you're not doing well enough. And they've just gone too far, and they've got too cocky. It wasn't enough anymore just to say, we've reduced your council tax yet again. Yeah, there's no bloody services left in the area. You know, people, you know, if you need anything in Hammersmith and Fulham, you're not going to get it. And so they've gone too far, and I think that pushed people. It wasn't a wonderful campaign by the Labour Party. It wasn't anything else that the left did. There isn't much of a left in Hammersmith and Fulham. But actually, people are inspired to fight back and resist in whatever way they can, because sometimes it just goes too far. And I think climate change is one of those things. It brings up local issues, it brings up international and national issues, which people will be forced to respond to in some way. I'm not saying sit here and wait on our hands for it to happen. But actually, you know, as much as there is a shift in acceptance of anti-immigration arguments and things like that, I find it quite depressing that people I work with will say, you know, so-and-so, they're scroungers, they don't deserve it, didn't we go too far, and welfare, you know, just go too far and make life too easy for people. Things have shifted in that. But actually, overall, the general population, the working class, ordinary people, they've still got a mentality of actually things aren't good enough. There's the them and us, there's the rich and the poor, and when they find an opportunity to fight back, strike back, vote back, whatever it is, they will take it. And I think that's something that we shouldn't despair at. You know, it's something that, you know, people's political mentality has not shifted enormously. They still recognise that around them there is room for change, and they'll go for it when they've got the opportunities to try and win it.
Thank you for that reminder that it's a very contradictory period. I think I meant to say it was that well-known non-Marxist Charles Dickens doing the opening of the Tale of Two Cities,